Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. So, the spoilers embargo is lifted in Nier Reincarnation, so let's talk about Chapter 1 of People World. I was waiting for Fio's 9th secret story to come to global, but it hasn't, so I will spoil it here, fair warning. There's actually a ton to talk about, but let's limit it to just 4 topics here. 1. Story versus plot. 2. Questions about how the scarecrow story characters work in the cage. 3. Fio's fate, and 4. The pace of events. I wanted to talk about the identity of the people and the world, but the people was a letdown, possibly a red herring, and the world is still unknown, so we'll save that topic and others for future videos. But in the comments, feel free to ask or say anything, unless, as always, it is data mined, information, spoilers. None of that, please. Okay, point number 1, story versus plot. Up to now, we've been using the term story a lot, but here I want to bring up the concept of plot, which is a part of story, but something we haven't really seen the first 2 years of the game. The story of Nier Reincarnation includes the world, characters, and plot, and each individual character has their own worlds, characters, and plots. But in the big picture, talking about the cage and Mama and all that, the plot hasn't actually started until now. What the plot is the sequence of events that take us from the beginning towards the end. Previously, I talked about the 3-act dramatic structure of setup, conflict, and resolution, and I think we could pretty easily make the argument that Girl Monster and Sun Moon were both setup. In terms of the cage and Mama, nothing advanced. There was never the introduction of conflict the first 2 years. In Nier Automata, I would argue that everything leading up to endings A and B are also set up, and that the plot doesn't start to develop until the virus takes off. But here, in People World, we finally have the introduction of the conflict of the greater story. The cage is under attack, and Mama summons scarecrow characters to defend it. With mobile games that want to last forever, handling the main story is a tricky thing. You want to advance the plot and eventually offer a resolution, but at the same time you want to string users along so they stick with it and then keep playing and keep spending. Final Fantasy XIV handles this by doing story arcs. Nier Reincarnation, as I have argued many times, is not interested in lasting forever, and once the mystery of the cage is resolved, I think there's nothing beyond that. Within this mobile game framework, there will be no new arc. And in the trailer from the 2nd anniversary, it said the mystery of the cage will be revealed here, so I think this is the beginning of the end. If you don't agree with that, I would love to know what you think is beyond the revelation of the mystery of the cage. I have not seen any hints about that. Okay, point 2. Questions about how scarecrow characters function in the cage. So, before we had special travelers in the cage, Fio, Lavanya, Hina, and Yuzuki, presumably brought over from the real world, but now we have characters summoned from memories, and I wonder about the nature of these characters. My biggest questions about them are they actually people, or are they like computer programs? Is it a life after life, or are they just projections running off scripts? Can they learn and grow and make new memories by themselves, or are they just doomed to run within the confines of their programming? In interacting with other characters, they might look like they are doing something new, but it's only because they have never met them before. Whether they can change because of these interactions is what I'll be looking out for. And then, after beating Chapter 1, we got the fragments for the characters, and reading them, I was like, that's it? They all kind of confirm what we already knew about them. They don't do anything to advance the plot of each character, and that made me think, oh, I guess there's no second act for these characters. There is no true resolution. The end of the main story is simply the end, and they often just die with regrets or unrealized potential, and that's it. So far, with People World, we are getting what a lot of people wanted, which is interaction between characters, and I like that too. But to me, it kind of feels like simple fan service or wheel spinning. Their characters aren't actually developed further. Maybe there will be more of that in the future. That's something I'm going to have my eye on. Alright, point 3 is Fio's fate, and Fio's dead. The moment I saw her summoned out of a coffin, I was like, no! But then her 9th secret story pretty much confirms it. It says a dead girl was found at the ruins near town. And then Argo comes out and asks Mama, are we dead? She says yes and no, which I interpret to mean that they are dead in the real world, but their memories live on in the server, or as weapon stories. I long suspected this, since many of the Scarecrow story characters die at the end of their personal stories. I think I always knew Fio was heading this way, but it's still sad to see. And then she kind of feels like downgraded from main character status, and she's now on the same level as all of the other characters. She's still the face of the game, but story-wise feels less special. One aspect I find very interesting is that looking especially at Dark Memory and Recollections of Dusk stories, there are different times and maybe timelines when Fio and Lavanya forget each other. I have a hunch that it is tied to when they die in real life and like where they made their memories of each other, but I haven't sat down to really map it out. Maybe I'll do that later. Okay, point 4 is pacing. I was very shocked how quickly Fio found and rescued Lavanya. Looking at the trailer that they released at the 2nd anniversary, I thought the search was going to play out over months. Fio would travel here and there, meet this character and that character, but nope, there he is, found him, move on to the next. This ties to Fio being downgraded in status. She's kind of no longer the center of the game. She is the center of this chapter, but the center of the next chapter, I assume, is going to be Sadiu, and then the one after that will be 063Y. I say again, I believe the game will only shut down once the story is resolved, but depending on how much budget the game has, getting there will be longer and more elaborate, or truncated, and this quick resolution to Fio's search for Lavanya feels truncated, could be a sign of lack of time and budget. Okay, that's all I have for now. Let's see when we get the next chapter. Let's do another reaction video there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.